Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, I have some special guests who have just come back from the Democratic National Convention as delegates and/or in other capacities. What an amazing DNC it was. Executed flawlessly. The speeches were epic. I really don't have enough superlatives to describe how I thought the DNC went. But especially when you consider that Vice President Harris had only been our presidential Democratic candidate for less than a month. Okay. Not only that, I just read that VP Kamala Harris has raised a record $540 million since she topped the Democratic ticket a month ago. Yet, despite all of these overwhelmingly powerful news and excitement and enthusiasm, we know, unfortunately, that this race will be a close one. My guests tonight are going to share their experiences at the DNC and what we're going to do and what we're going to discuss, what all of us must do beyond being excited and enthusiastic. All right, so up first, I have Satana DeBerry. She is the elected district attorney for Durham County, North Carolina. As district attorney, she has prioritized the prosecution of serious offenses and implemented policies to reduce unnecessary pretrial incarceration and court involvement, and work to improve trust and equity in the courts. Throughout her career, DeBerry has worked to dismantle systems that restrict the lives of poor people, families, communities of color, and other marginalized groups. She is the recipient of the North Carolina Justice Center's 2020 Defender of Justice Award for litigation and several other awards. Welcome back to the show, DA Satana DeBerry.
I'm glad to be here, Pam. Always a pleasure.
Oh, I'm always happy to have you. And you always say yes to me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next up, I have Troy Dante Prestwood. Troy is a community architect, change agent, and award-winning CEO of the Prestwood Group, a media consultancy located in Washington, D.C. With his expertise in communication, marketing, and political campaigns, Troy has led local and national initiatives in healthcare, education, and electoral politics. He is a tireless advocate for DC statehood and is a former three-time elected official. I remember when you ran your first time. Troy is a frequent guest on local and national news outlets, providing expert political and social analysis on news events. Welcome to the show, Troy.
So glad to be here with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. And last but not least, April, I need you to cut your camera on. Okay. And last but not least, we have April Turner. April is the Vice President of Communications and External Affairs for Higher Heights for America. It is the political home for Black women, where she works to harness the collective organizing power of Black women from the voting booth to elected office. Prior to this role, April served as VP of Communications for the Campaign for Youth Justice, where she led media strategy to elevate the issue of prosecuting youth in adult criminal court. April is also the founder of Turner Communications, LLC, where she was able to practice public relations with a purpose by advocating and advancing worthy causes. April has worked on Capitol Hill in a variety of media capacities, including press advisor to to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Welcome to the show, Aprill.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so excited to have all of you guys. And Aprill and Dante know each other because we all know each other from NABJ. But Satana DeBerry, guys, she is somebody to watch. Don't be surprised if you see her on a national stage somewhere or in somebody's administration nationally. But I don't know. We'll have to take her. She'll be kicking and screaming to leave us. She is dynamic. Okay, so this question is for each of you, and I'm going to do a round robin with Satana being first, Troy, and then Aprill. Okay, Satana, tell us what your DNC experience was like, and what was your number one takeaway from that experience?
Wow, it was the experience of a lifetime. I had not had any intention of going to DNC this year, but when Kamala became the nominee, I said there was no way I was going to miss it. And so I went on the wing in a prayer and I had no credentials, no way in. Turned out I got credentials for every night and ended up being in the place every evening. And so it was amazing and an amazing experience that I wouldn't trade for anything. And what was my biggest takeaway? My biggest takeaway was that there was a lot of hope and enthusiasm in the room, and people understand that this is not going to be easy, that they're going to have to work hard. That is the thing that I heard from everybody, that they were excited to have her as a nominee, but they knew that they had to go home and work for the next 70-something days to make sure that we put her in the White House.
Okay. All right. Troy, you next. Your experience and number one takeaway.
Yeah. So I was a delegate to the DNC this year. This is my second go around. My first time as a delegate was 4 years ago when we helped to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But it became a virtual convention due to the coronavirus pandemic. So this was my first time really being in the convention space, in the hall, interacting with other delegates from around the country around a central theme, which is we're here to get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected in November, on November 5th, to be more precise for your viewers. And so, it was electrifying. I mean, I have to agree with Satana. I mean, the energy inside of the convention hall, which technically is not a convention center, it's a United Center, but the energy in there was so incredible that it is still, I'm still wearing it. I'm still wearing that energy that really became like a perfume, if you will, inside the convention hall there. And I'm fired up. I'm ready to go out here and knock on doors. The DC Democratic Party, we've adopted Pennsylvania as a battleground state. Of course, we're not forgetting that Maryland is also a battleground state when it comes to at least the Senate. And so I'm just fired up and ready to go. I can't wait to get to work. And all of that enthusiasm, that energy, that fire that was lit all came from last week at the DNC, baby.
All right. All right. Aprill, your turn.
I totally agree. I think we're still on cloud nine. We're probably still tired because it was an exhaustive week. But it was amazing. I mean, you can feel the energy at home. I'm sure people that watched it, but being in the United Center, you felt all of it. And my biggest takeaway was all the Black girl magic that made that week happen. From our chair, Mignon Moore of the DNC Convention Committee, Leah Daughtry and Marsha Fudge, who co-chaired the Rules Committee, and think about all the rules that had to happen to make sure that Kamala can move through that process. Lottie Shackelford, our nation's first Black woman mayor of a top 100 city, who is an at-large delegate. Virgie Rollins, who is chair of the DNC Black Caucus. And then you saw on the stage all the other Black girl magic, from Michelle Obama to Oprah to Kamala Harris's nieces to Maya Harris, to Jasmine Crockett. It just went on and on and on. And it was just so exciting to see us lead.
All right. All right. So now let's talk about how we're all going to tackle the indifference among some people who really don't understand what is at stake in this election. And I say this because I'm really surprised that things are still so close when you consider all of the what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have managed to do in their term in office. And I hear this by the various man on the street type of interviews. Satana, you were born, I'm going to start with you first. You were born and raised here in North Carolina and served as Durham, North Carolina's district attorney. What are your thoughts about this as a person sworn to uphold the law about the possibility of Trump becoming president again? And North Carolina being a very critical state in this election.
Yeah, I think there are not a lot of undecided voters out there. I think what we do know here in North Carolina is Joe Biden lost North Carolina by only about 70,000 votes. That is not a lot of people. What that means is that we need to really mobilize people who don't vote often. Mm-hmm. Right. Just in Eastern North Carolina alone, there are about 160,000 registered Black voters who did not come out in 2020. Those people can make a difference. When Barack Obama won North Carolina in 2008, he won by an average of 4 votes per precinct. Mm-hmm. So we know just how narrowly these races can be won, and that literally everybody's vote matters. And so here in North Carolina, we just have to turn out people who don't vote often, and they have to have a reason to vote. For your viewers who don't know, I ran for Attorney General here in North Carolina this year, did not win the primary, but did win 35 counties. And one of the things that I talked about on the campaign trail was you absolutely have to give marginal voters something to come out and vote for. They cannot have 3 white guys in a blue shirt to vote for at the top of their ticket. Mm-hmm. They have to have a reason to come out, and they have to have a reason to keep voting down the ticket. Kamala gives them that reason, right? But we do still have to engage them. We still have to tell them why it is important to us that she votes. You know, you have to tell your personal story of why you are voting for Kamala and why it is important for you that people keep voting down the ballot. You can't tell them they're voting against their interests. You can't tell them that democracy is at stake. Yeah. You got to tell them real things, and they have to feel real connection to the ticket. I think Kamala provides that. I think that each of us I love to hear Troy talking about how they have adopted Pennsylvania. DC is done. They don't have to worry about DC. They don't necessarily have to worry about Maryland. Although I am hoping that they come out for my girl Angela Also Brooks, my soror, because we still do need her in the Senate.
Yes.
But we do need people showing up in community and saying this is important and this is why you should come out.
Right, right. Troy, you next. Your thoughts on what's at stake if Trump were to get back in office?
You know, there was a line said at the convention that continues to resonate with me, and it was about, I'm sorry, I just lost some light up in here, but I'll get it later. But it was, you know, like when you get a cell phone or when you sign up for some new service, it comes with terms and conditions, right? Mm-hmm. And those terms and conditions, most of us don't read them. We scroll through, hurry up, get to the bottom so we can accept, and then we can get about whatever we were there to get about.
Yeah.
The terms and conditions for a Trump presidency is pretty clear. It's already laid out in the Project 2025 book that is out there, you know, and so they were able to manage to bring that to the convention stage to make sure people understood what was at stake. And that's what's at stake. We're talking about reproductive freedom. Well, I would say freedom is at stake, right? So what does that look like? Start with reproductive freedom. Talk about the freedom to vote, the freedom to love who you love, the freedom to choose. And then, for us here in the District of Columbia, we think about the freedom of the 700,000 people who do not have full voting representation in the U.S. House or the Senate. And so freedom and democracy is at stake here. And I know, just hearing what Santana said, I know that doesn't resonate with the sister down the street who got, a couple of kids and she's just trying to make it through. I get that. It doesn't resonate with the man who is trying to, provide for his family, working at the local, fast food joint. I get that. And so how do we make those big ideals, democracy and freedom, how do we translate that down to those people, to the people who are ordinary Americans who can vote, but sometimes choose not to because they're either tired of the same thing that we've been seeing, which I think is to another point that Santana made, or they don't see what's in it for them. So that's really the job of the next 70 plus days for those of us who love freedom and democracy, is to help those who may not quite be able to connect those two ideals, those two concepts to each other, and to help them understand that what freedom looks like. Again, reproductive rights is pretty clear, right? But then also, what do we mean when we say the right to vote? What do we mean by that in terms of where you live and your voice, how that doesn't matter anymore if you lose it? So it's a matter of, for me at least, it's about trying to make the connection to, to our everyday life. And I'm going to continue to hammer away at that until, it's nothing else left.
Mm-hmm. All right. Aprill?
I totally agree with my colleagues. I haven't had a chance to say hi to Satana. We know Satana at Higher Heights, so good to see you, sister. And there's just so much on the ballot. There's definitely, they laid it out correctly. Like there's so much that us to think about as far as Donald Trump, but our everyday lives and our state level and our local levels are so important. And for us to, as Michelle Obama said, do something. Get out and have these conversations with people and to be able to talk about what's at stake for them over the next something days as to why they should go and make sure they vote. Not only to make sure that he does not see the White House again. I think during the convention that Barack Obama did a great job laying out that case about his part 2 or his remake is like, it's not going to get any better, folks.
The sequel.
Yes, the sequel. Thank you. And to think about exactly right. In Maryland, we do want to elect an Angela Austin Brooks, and in Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester, and to remind people in the history of this country, Black women have only been in the Senate for 11 years. Think about that. We're over 250 years old. Only 11 years had a Black woman's voice represent us in that body. We do need a Latifah Simon in Oakland to be in Congress, a Janelle Bynum in Oregon to be in Congress for the first time a Black woman would be in Congress from Oregon, a Michelle Mosby who's running for Congress in Richmond, a Flo Crawford who's running for mayor of, Michelle Mosby running for mayor, Flo Crawford who's running for mayor of Sacramento. There are so many things happening for us locally that we need to make sure that we're in tune with. And I believe that diverse decision-making tables make better decisions. They bring along everybody for the ride. And why it's so important for us to get up and vote up and down the ballot and make sure that we have people that have our best interest in mind to address all of the issues that people are so upset about. I also think what you saw this week at the DNC, and I know we have to get up there and fight, as we keep saying, but I hope it's a blowout. I really hope it's not even close. And I hope that joy and hope prevails over angry and nasty and bitterness every time. And I think what you saw was more joy and hope, and people think that they really have a chance at putting Kamala Harris and Governor Walz in office. So we have some more that hope and joy can address some of our problems in our nation that we know need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
And Pam, I want to add this real quick is, it is important for people to remember that Trump did not win the popular vote in 16 or 20. People do not like him.
All right. We tend to not get the popular vote.
That's right. We are looking at what he won in 2016 because of the Electoral College.
Right.
And I know everybody's like, that's too complicated. We don't want to talk about it, but it's important. It's why there are battleground states. It's why Pennsylvania is important. It's why North Carolina, Wisconsin, that one congressional district in Omaha
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
Right? It's because we have to make sure that that Kamala gets to 270.
Right.
But millions and millions of people do not want Donald Trump to be their president.
Right. Right.
And the vote.
Right.
And they vote, and unfortunately, their votes don't count as much because of the way the Electoral College is set up.
Yeah.
But we have to remind our neighbors, right, that your vote, because you live in North Carolina, because you live in that Nebraska congressional district, your vote counts. It counts not extra, but it's a very important vote.
Right. There was a question. There's some questions in the chat, and Zachary Clipper. Zach is one of my faithful people. He says, "What does the panel think of all the negative energy online by Black men?" I thought it was changing around, Zach. I guess maybe Zach stays on top of stuff, so maybe it's risen up again. What do you guys think of that? Troy, I'm gonna go with you first on that question.
So I think Zach has a point. It's still out there. It hasn't disappeared. Maybe we could say it's steady. It has stabilized. It's not continuing to grow, but it's still there. And I think part of that is, well, it's so multifaceted. So I'll try to be as succinct here as I can. But I think part of that is there is some language that the party is using that I think is turning off some men and some Black men in particular. And I tried to mention that actually to one of the comms persons at the party. And I said, I think you guys need to start softening the language around felon, right? There's a lot of men, Black men in particular, who have been convicted and have felonious records and who have been disenfranchised even as a result of that. And what's happening is that you have some misinformation out there. You have also, let's be real here, you have a machine on the other side who is trying to, chip away at Democratic support, especially among men, Black men of the Democratic Party. And so they're painting a picture of Kamala as this lock them up type of a person. And do you want that in the White House? Because, they're going to lock you up again or whatever the case may be. So there is an issue, I think, around messaging to Black men. It is changing. They are beginning to, I think, realize that they have to re-message some things. And so I will tell your viewer to just be on the lookout for some of that. You saw some of that actually at the convention with D.L. Hughley, who came out and said, listen, I've been wrong about what I said about Kamala. And, I've accused her of being a lock 'em up type of person as well, not knowing her full record. And that was misinformation. That was wrong. And I'm here to apologize. So I think the more you begin to tell that story and again, re-message and repackage the story for Black men, what's at stake in this election? Of course, we're talking about how do we grow. Black men want what I want, which is to be able to support their family, to have a great job or career, grow a job if that's what I want to do. I think the more we begin to tell that story and make it more palatable, the better.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to address that?
Well, as the prosecutor, I definitely probably should. I agree with Troy around I find this felon versus prosecutor language uncomfortable, mostly because we really want to be fair and equitable. And as Democrats, we have been fighting for a long time to restore the voting rights of people who have been convicted of felonies. Mm-hmm. We want to say, hey, we don't want people to have to pay forever for this. And it seems a little bit that now that maybe we think it plays in our favor, we want to use it. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to use that to be able to fight Donald Trump. Right? There are 100 other ways in which he is unfit for office. Mm-hmm. That is the least exactly, Troy. I mean, we've run out of fingers, right? And so there are a million other ways in which he is unfit to be president that we need to focus on. I also think it's a little unfair to focus on Black men when it is white women who put him in office to start with.
Girl, don't even get us started on that one. Yeah.
And that those are the folks who need to have, they need to be having conversations with each other.
Mm-hmm. And they are
having them. I appreciate those white women for Kamala calls, mm-hmm. where folks like Glennon Doyle get on and say, hey, it's our turn to acknowledge that what we've done and step up.
Yeah.
But, so let's not put it on Black men like, if they don't show up for Kamala, that'll be the reason things don't go well. That mm-hmm. won't be the reason things don't go well. And mm-hmm. I do want to say one more thing about DL making the apology on national television. I also saw Dave Chappelle there at the DNC. And these guys are comedians, mm-hmm. and they have used Kamala as the brunt of jokes for a while. And I think, and we have really seen a change in them, I think, because they before have been defensive about that. They're like, well, I'm a comedian. I'm just making jokes. But they see that people listen to those jokes.
Yes.
And now they're like, let me take a step back. Because, mm-hmm. again, there are 100 other things I can make a joke about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this shouldn't be one of them.
Right. There was another April, did you have anything you wanted to add or no?
Just really quickly, yeah, I think Satana hit the nail on the head. And I do think that Kamala Harris has made a concerted effort toward Black men. I do think it's changing. You did see many of the influencers there that during the DNC that she has made outreach to, invited to the residents, and we haven't gotten Charlemagne yet. That's the different story. But yeah. I totally agree. You don't need him. Whenever this conversation comes around, I want us to focus on white women as well. Because Satana hit every point. I'm having trouble dropping in the chat. I want to share with the audience an article that came out today about women vote and how it's something to really look at as we think about how do we get Kamala Harris over the finish line on November 5th. And this is a voting bloc that consistently has put Trump in office and supported him. And I do think if we need to look at that very, very carefully.
Right. There was another excellent question here in the chat from Renee Shaw. Renee is a faithful friend of mine. What do the panelists think about the missed opportunity for the DNC convention to have a Palestinian guest speaker or representation? And how can we correct this situation? That very dicey, delicate, spicy situation. Who wants to tackle that first? April?
We're like, I'll jump in at once. I'll be honest, I got back yesterday and I literally was living DNC. Mm-hmm. Living in the moment, living all the things. And I watched the news and I said, I didn't realize this perspective, that this was, I didn't have a chance to take it in while I was there. Mm-hmm. We do know that Democratic convention, it was a masterfully produced event. Everything had this very specific purpose and there was an agenda that they were trying to reach. So I don't have a lot of commentary on it because I'm just realizing that it happened when I got back. But I do think it's an interesting thing to say, hey, great convention, great roll call, great all these things, but you missed this one thing that might be a problem for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Troy?
I think it's fair to say that we missed an opportunity there to speak to it. But I will say that the vice president did speak to what was happening there in the Middle East with a force and a gravitas I don't think I have heard anyone do since. And she put that in her acceptance speech. But to have a separate speaker, sure, that would have been great. I think, to April's point, the producers just didn't want to go there. They wanted to keep it at a certain, vibration. And they likely felt that if you were to bring in a Palestinian, then you need to also bring in someone from Israel. And then you're going to have the back and forth and then the pitting of the two and all of that. So to avoid all of that, you just leave them both off. I did, however, see violent protests that went on. In fact, there was, I think, a hunger strike. I met a young man. I moderated a panel while I was at the DNC off-site. But I met him just in passing. I said, "Oh, you must be a delegate." He said, "Yeah, he's from Texas." And he said, "Yeah, we're doing this thing for Palestine or for Gaza. We would love for you to come be a part of it." And I said, "Well, I took the information and thanked them." But I saw he was part of that group that had a hunger strike, and they led them into the convention hall on the final night, and they continued their silent protest. So they did allow for opportunities for protest, but you did not hear from the stage, which I think is what your viewer was talking about. And was it a missed opportunity? Sure.
Okay. There's more commentary. Let's see. For all the social media shortcomings. Blah, 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 blah. Even without, we lived through 4 years of a Trump presidency. Only a fool would sign up for more. Okay, that's just a comment.
I'm like, I agree.
Terms and conditions in the Project 25.
Okay. Do we get to diverse showcasing Black jobs and baby boomers speak? Did the DNC's diversity jeopardize white middle America voting expectation? That's an interesting question. You think who wants to take that?
I'll take it because first of all, I think there's an assumption that rural America is only full of white people. It is not.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in the rural South. My people are still there. And so they, have the same economic concerns. It was very Black, culturally Black now. There's no doubt about that. And especially coming on the heels of a diasporic Olympics, it had the same kind of feel, the same kind of Black is cool feel. The culture is, it was the culture, right? There's a lot of the culture in it. And number one song on the country charts is a Shaboozey. So American culture is Black culture.
Yes, it is.
So there's that part. So I will say, I think American culture is Black culture. I don't think it was too Black. On the other hand, I say this a lot. Some of those white people, they are gone. They're not coming back. They're not. Why are we chasing people who don't want to be here? Those are voters who have decided that for whatever reason, they're not going to vote for a Democrat.
Okay.
And you can see it because if you ask somebody what makes a good neighbor, who they'd want live in, it would be the exact opposite of not just Donald Trump. Here in North Carolina, we have Mark Robinson and Dan Bishop running for governor and attorney general. Those are two of the meanest, nastiest people on the planet.
I know. North Carolina's got some real issues, y'all. Woo,
but even further down the ballot, right? We have school board. We have nasty people running for school board, mean people running for the legislature, and they continue to vote for him because the party has become part of their identity and not part of the issues. And I think the way we win and the way we, again, bring in those infrequent voters is to talk about the things that Americans care about. And they care about their pocketbooks, they care about their kids, they care about their own futures. They're not stupid, right? Just because they don't want to talk about the intricacies of constitutional law and democracy doesn't mean that they don't understand that they're paying more for groceries or gas is higher and their kids don't feel safe at school and all these other things that are going on. And I think we talk about those things and how Democrats can make their lives better. And I think that's what the convention did.
Yeah.
To add in real quick, I totally agree. So I had a chance, I had to, because of our tax filing status, go to DNC and RNC, and both conventions did it for the culture. RNC had Kid Rock, they had Amber Rose. So think about where we are in 2024. This might not have been Obama's convention. He might not have had Lil Jon come out on the floor, but yeah, we here. And the culture's up for grabs. And what you're seeing it's a movement. what you're seeing is this Black woman who has been in office for 3.5 years, who has gotten been attacked by misinformation, got negative press. Where is she? We don't see her. All of a sudden, you're seeing her get covered that she hasn't been getting in the last 3.5 years. You're seeing social media take on and being like, yeah, her theme song is a Beyonce song. So the fact that they're leaning into the culture, because the culture before a month ago was like, we don't want to vote. We don't care about this. We're not energized. This is a gift to lead all the way into it. I think they did it masterfully.
Yes, they did.
I just want to quickly add that, yes, Black culture diversity is our strength. It is not a weakness. And so I think if they're in rural America or they're in urban and suburban, communities, if you are threatened by a diverse party, then it's not the party for you. I do think you still go after voters, Santana. I do, I'm willing to go where you might think you shouldn't go, even if it's just to run up, to just get something, to chisel away at something, right? But I understand your point is that overall, it's like, listen, if you don't want to be part of this new America, then there's a party waiting for you that looks like the old one. And it's welcoming not just white people, but white adjacent people too, who believe in white supremacy. I always say white supremacy, has co-conspirators, and it's not. And I say this in a tongue-in-cheek way, but at the same time, I have Republican friends, and they don't even recognize their own party. Their party has gone mega.
Absolutely.
So it is not the same. Like I went to an HBCU. Actually, Aprill and I went to the same HBCU, Howard HU. And I spar with Republicans all the time, but at the end, we went out and had a drink, I guess, right? Or something else. And so to many of them, and not just Black Republicans, but just Republicans in general, when I'm on television, I'm talking to people who are all in every spectrum, and they don't recognize this on their party anymore. So there's a lot at stake here. And I tell you, if you really want to talk to rural America, talk to the Black people in rural America. There's a lot of us here too. Get us out to the polls in places like Alabama, places like Tennessee,
Louisiana,
Georgia,
Mississippi, Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, like I'm talking about the part of Mississippi where they don't even say the last part; they just say Mississippi. Get us out to the polls, and stop trying to do voter suppression, and stop with these, these tactics of, they might as well bring back how many bubble gums. And it is so incredible what's happening. So we're out there. Rural America is us. Talk to us too. We can do the talking as well.
Right. Absolutely. Let's see here. Judy asks, how does the panel think the anti-Harris, Willie Horton type ads featuring Latinos should be addressed? This strategy helped to sink Dukakis in 1988. I don't know if I've seen that ad yet. It's like I would have, or I might have just ignored it. Who wants to take that on? Aprill, you want to take that?
I haven't seen it yet either, but I think to the point that Judy's making, we've been here before, right? We feel it's such fragile ground. The Dukakis race that she's talking about, he went into this convention on a high and lost 17 points after all of this stuff happened, these ads happened. And what I appreciate about the Harris camp is that's a little different than the Biden camp. They have been dealing with Trump for so long, and it was kind of like, we're going to ignore him. They attack him head on every day. No shot goes unfired. They are aggressive on reacting to him. And I appreciate that. They're aggressive to reacting to anything that's coming to attack her. And I think this race calls for that. So while I haven't seen that particular ad, Judy, I do think that they are great with their statements. They're great on social. They are great at, kind of taking advantage of him, making him like a joke. Like, dude, you're weird. You're this. And they just don't ignore him, which I think Biden did a little too much. We wanted him to fight a little bit more at sometimes. So I would say if they keep doing that, they're going to be okay and win this thing.
All right. Let's see. Zach says, on the other hand, the felon has not said a word on the country viewing felons in a different light.
No. the felon Trump. I'm slow, sorry.
Yeah.
Me a minute too.
Well, no, that's true. He hasn't said a word. More so, well, he has said a word. He says he thinks that will make Black people vote for him now.
Along with the gold gym shoes and all of that.
That's correct.
Let's see, whole life in the abortion. They feel they're being left out of that messaging because not only do women lose the right of their own. Okay.
I do have a thought here too, Pam. I was talking to a really good friend of mine, Charles Coleman, who's also another Howard grad. He's an MSNBC contributor, and he was talking about how to talk to Black men in your life. And he gave really good tips. We were asking him like, hey, you know, we understand that Black women, we don't go to the polls alone. We bring our households, our churches, our blocks, our sororities, and oftentimes if mama's going to vote, everybody's going to vote. So it's like, how do we have these conversations with people in our lives that are practical? And I thought he gave really good advice about not arguing. Everybody has a right to have their own opinion and their thoughts and their view of what their top priorities are. And, you know, perhaps you're talking to a Black man in your life where, you know, report rights is not the top of their list. And I think this falls in line with what Michelle Obama said, do something, having conversations, talking to those Black men about, so what is the important issue to you? And being able to articulate how the Kamala Harris Walz agenda will address it. But I thought he had really good tips about the minute we start talking down to someone, or you don't know nothing, or like really, what is your top issue? Let's discuss that. It's okay that report rights is not your top issue. I'm going to tell you why it's important to me, but I also want to learn what's important to you. And I think those are, over the next 70-something days, the real combos that we're having at our kitchen tables, in our households, amongst our friends, and how you have to meet people and not make them feel like they are not at your level because they don't understand the issue or care about it at the same way that you do. So I just want to say that about that question.
So Tana, one of our commentators in the group, Suzette, mentioned, I think the rule of law is critical because of the Supreme Court ruling. In that context, we have to make the distinction, just my opinion. I think she's talking about, you know, clearly our Supreme Court is unbalanced, and we haven't heard yet exactly what President Biden is wanting to do about the Supreme Court. But, you know, they clearly did the layup. Everything in Trump's favor thus far. Everything. And Trump can't get back in office, y'all. He just cannot. We're all cooked if he is. Period. Satana, what would be the course of action if you were VP Harris, then President Harris? We're gonna claim that she gets in. What does she have to do immediately? What if she appointed you as her attorney general or something? I don't know. That would be. Listen,
if I made it through Congress, through the Senate as her attorney general, then things really will have changed in this country. You know, I think the courts are very important.
Yes.
As a lawyer, I am more likely to say that the state courts are more important than the Supreme Courts. The Supreme Court, one of the things that we've seen here in North Carolina is that the Supreme Court will return cases to a state court and say, let the state, we think the state court should make that decision. And the state court has then been packed with Republicans. I think it is less pro-Trump than it is a certain type of view, a certain type of Christian nationalist view of how the court should work.
Yeah.
And so it is not Trump dependent. I think they would have made that decision were it any conservative Republican, if those people had been, they have been, this movement probably started 30 years ago. And people are just now starting to see it pop up because they have the numbers now in the federal courts, and they have people on the Supreme Court. But as an attorney, I've seen this happening, accelerating over the last decade, right? Obama was not able to get his picks through the federal courts, which left many of those seats empty when Trump took office. and they fill them just like that.
Mhm.
So we will have the courts to deal with for a long time, even if they're in some way that we manage to reform the Supreme Court, which presidents have tried to do before. We still have lower federal courts and state courts that have been stacked in, with this certain viewpoint. And, another good reason to vote here in North Carolina, all judges are elected.
That's right.
And they used to be nonpartisan, and they've made them partisan.
Oh no, it's very partisan.
And it's very partisan, and so you got to turn your ballot over. You got to go to the bottom of the ballot.
Yeah.
Then you got to turn it over and see if there's anything on the back.
You're not done if you're on one side.
You're not done if you just filled out one side.
That is the truth, guys. You have to look up and down and turn it around. Make sure you don't have anything else. That's what we're gonna have to say now, Satana.
That's right.
Up and down and turn it around. Zach says, should you recognize a person who is uncommitted to your cause?
What does that mean?
I don't know. I wonder, is he referencing some of these? I wonder, is he referencing people who are celebrities, and we give them hype or give them attention just because they're a celebrity, and then they're going against the cause. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. Let us know what you mean, Zach. But they did bring in the hostage parents. I remember that.
They did do that. Yeah.
They did do that to have the roles. Yeah, they did do that. So I don't know. Let's see. There's so much in there. Let's see. They did have Israeli. Yeah, she's saying the same thing. But VP Harris did speak strongly on the Gaza situation. To Santana's quote, Nicole Hannah-Jones is from Iowa. It's true. She is. It's a lot in the chat. April Hillary got more votes, yet lost electoral votes. So how are we monitoring the electoral college votes?
Mm-hmm.
April,
I saw that, Terry. Thank you. I think it was something. There's so many great nuggets from last week, but I think it's something that Michelle Obama said. I love this. We don't have time to be about this a Goldilocks take on it. That this just right. But what she did say that I love, though, was that we have to knock this out of the park. This cannot be a question. We need to have to 08. We need to stand in lines.
Yes.
This needs to be so. I know we all remember 2016 very vividly. We all stayed up at night and we looked like, oh man.
I had my covers over my head.
Yeah.
Listen, I went to bed early because I couldn't take it.
I woke up and saw he was the winner on the TV. I was like, in 2020, we had.
I turned on HGTV. I couldn't look at the news anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't watch
HGTV.
In 2020, though, we had to wait a little bit. I actually stopped watching TV for a second, and me and a friend were out shopping, and I was like, oh, they finally called this race. We need a decisive victory. We want to see it on November 5th that night. We want to unquestion. This is not enough electoral votes and popular votes. This is it. So I think it needs to happen, and we need to approach it that way. Let's go vote so hard that there's no question.
Let me get a get dirty for a minute, because that's who I am. And I went to a media only briefing, a couple media only briefings during the DNC, because I'm just always curious about what you guys are hearing and the way you report. And I heard some really interesting things about the Electoral College and the pathway and polling. And one of the things that they were talking about was when Joe Biden was in the race, he really only had one pathway to victory. He had to win Pennsylvania. Everything else was, and that congressional district in Nebraska, and everything else was off the board for him. It seems that Kamala has put North Carolina back in play. She's put Georgia back in play. She's put Nevada back in play. Arizona back in play. So she has 4 to 7 paths to victory that didn't exist before. And Trump's paths to victory have shrunk. So there are definitely people who are paying attention to what's happening with the Electoral College and the combination of states that need to happen and for her to pull it off.
Well, again, that's why we said that we want to focus on, like you said, Santana, DC, we know which way the 3 electoral votes from DC will go. So that means that gives us an opportunity to help push Pennsylvania over the edge, right? That gives us a chance to do some work in North Carolina. We did that back in 2020. Didn't quite pay off, but, we at least tried there. And so the way we win the presidency is through the Electoral College. And so we can't get bamboozled. We can't get gaslit. We can't, start thinking, well, we want Electoral College reform. Listen, this is not the time to have that conversation. We can have that conversation afterwards, but right now, let's win at the game that they have rigged for us to win in. And so we have to do the things that are necessary to get those states to the majority for the Democratic side so that we can pick up those electoral votes. That's how you win in this game. And so I hope that the viewers who are watching this hear my voice. Get engaged in a place. If your state is blue, solidly blue, then reach out to your party and ask them, what are we doing? Are we working with another state? How can we work with another state to help them with their electoral process there? Are we doing a caravan? Are we doing a letter writing campaign? Are we doing phone banking? What are we doing? Because there is
banking,
all of us
stuff you can do from your own home.
Yes. This is an interesting question from Deb Carter. What do the panelists think about Kennedy endorsing Trump and how it may affect the Democratic vote? Who wants to take that first?
Yeah, I saw that. I'll just say quickly, I think he's been a threat, but I think his campaign lost so much momentum. I was like, okay. I feel that way. I mean, I could be wrong, but he turned out to be a big nothing burger. I'll put it that way. So yeah, he gave up because he was like, what else can I do? And you go and be with him. Now, good luck. She's going to be both of y'all. Is what I have to say about that.
Here's my sound effect. Wah, wah. Who cares? He was closer to Trump ideology anyway than he was to the Democratic Party. I mean, my God, how does someone who is part of a political dynasty that helped to really reinvigorate the new Democratic Party sink so low? So, yeah, womp womp.
When you say closer to his ideology, do you mean weird? Because he is definitely that.
And I will add, the way the family issue statements to denounce him are, to me, hilarious. When he first ran, they were like, the Kennedy family says no. And it was hilarious.
That was funny.
When the bear story came out, I was done. Because first it was the worm ate his brain and then the bear, and I was done.
Yeah.
I was completely.
Well, and then, there's also this story about, there's this picture of him and his girlfriend where he's wearing a Black is Beautiful button from like the early 70s.
Who did that?
Kennedy, RFK Jr. And when the photographer asked him why he was wearing the Black is Beautiful button, he pointed to his girlfriend whose name was Emily Black. So he's got a million stories like that.
That's good. That's crazy.
Poor thing. Not only Kennedy, but I heard West was going to endorse Trump. You mean Cornel West? Oh, please.
I think both of them had so few voters.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those situations where social media and maybe some fringe reporting makes things seem more important than they actually are. But there are a lot of voters out there who've never heard of RFK Jr., who've never heard of Cornel West, who are going to get to the voting booths when they early vote or on November 5th, and they're going to see that there's 7 people on the ballot, and they're only going to recognize 2 names.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. This is an interesting concept that Renee brought up about how there's so many more Black voters in Texas than any other state. And she says that the DNC doesn't target that state like others. Anybody have a comment on that?
I'll just say quickly, there are large numbers of Black voters in Texas, but there are also very large numbers of Hispanics, Latinos in Texas as well, and white people. So they're large numbers, but it's a percentage that you really want to think about overall. It's not so much that it's the Black voters that you want to, it's the messaging that you want to bring to Texans. I spent a lot of time as a child there, growing up, and, summers, I should say, as a child there. And, I can tell you that, they have a very different culture than the rest of the country. And so if you speak in their vernacular, you speak in their language, I'm talking about the Texan language, you can make some inroads there. But you're right, Renee, that the Democratic Party as a whole has not done a lot of investment there. We did see something around Beto, Beto O'Rourke. We saw a little bit happening there because we did get a glimpse that it could be more purple. It can move in that direction than we have previously thought. I have delegate friends who I ran into from Texas who said, man, we really need to, get more support here. We could turn it. I think he's a little bit optimistic, but I do believe that it can happen. And it's not just the Black voters, it's with our Latino voters. And it's with, right thinking, others in the state too, that will help turn it around eventually.
Yeah,
but
Texas.
Hard. They have a very tough problem there with the voting ID. It is a state that they have largely suppressed voters, and it always impacts low-income people. That's all I was going to say.
And Texas has more rural voters than any state in the country. North Carolina is number 2. And you've got to be able to reach all those rural voters. Again, in a way, their vote has been suppressed now over decades. It's a lot of hard work to do that. And I think I agree. It's probably a missed opportunity for Democrats. Not going to happen today, though. Not going to happen this cycle.
And I just wanted to add, if we could do a whole other show on party politics, the DNC is very focused. Their position, their role is to elect the president, and they're going to do that. Same thing with the DSCC, they're going to elect the Senate. So they're playing where they can win. And if they don't think that particular state, they also play, I think Renee's Georgia question. So this is a all hands on deck situation in the next 70 days. It's not just the DNC. It's the Legal Defense Fund, the ACP. It's everybody coming together to say, hey, we need voter turnout, protect voters when they go to the polls. This is not just a party issue when it comes to making sure that our votes are protected and that we're actually pushing people to go vote. This is all the big organizations coming together to say, hey, we're going to come in and put all our power behind these states where people are have voter disenfranchisement. We need to get voter turnout up. So I don't want to focus on the party. They have a very specific focus that they're working on, but it's really going to take all hands to come together. All these groups that invest in voting.
That's right. Unions.
That's right.
Everybody who can drive out voters, they've got to drive them out.
Right.
And I'll say this one last thing about Texas. You can't show up in the 11th hour and try to get votes, right? Like an investment is over time. And so it's not just a party. Like April said, it's other organizations that need to start to do that investment today. And you mark my words, eventually we will see change there. Just demographically, it's already happening. But because of the draconian voter suppression laws that are in Texas, it's going to be a minute.
Alicia Baker Rogers says, however, we have 2 weeks of early voting in Texas, so there is plenty of opportunity for those who want to vote. But you know what?
Fair.
That's the thing about wanting to vote. And so you need the hands on the ground to get the people revved up to vote. You need the churches, you need the community, you need those people to be invested. April, I've got to ask you this question. I've been dying to know. Higher Heights for America sponsored an event there at the DNC, the Shirley Chisholm Effect. Please share with us what that was like. What was that about? That midnight brunch you guys gave?
Yes, we did 2 events at DNC. We did a Shirley Chisholm brunch, midnight brunch on Wednesday night. So that was originally her night. We were all in, and a month ago we said, oh no, she's the candidate. So we had to change things around. But our, Shirley Chisholm is important to us. She's important to all of us. And she is the catalyst that lit this moment. She dared to believe and dream that she can run for president, and she didn't make it, but she is what sparked this moment. So we wanted to honor her that night, and we had a glorious time in a beautiful venue in Chicago. Chicago, and then the next night we had a Madam President after party. And our point is, for those with the DNC, I know Satana and Troy and I were blessed to get credentials, but everybody couldn't get in. So we wanted to create a space people can come together in community, have a watch party, be in the city, in the moment, be together, and be able to do these things. And it was amazing. And we were just so happy to be able to honor on Wednesday evening Shirley Chisholm, because she is the momentum behind this moment.
Yes, she is. Yes, she most certainly is. Any last parting thoughts? Oh, one thing somebody in the audience said, everyone needs to make sure that they are still registered. And that includes us in North Kakalaki too, especially because we got a lieutenant governor who's running for governor who's worse than Trump. And so we really have to, we gotta be on the case. Yeah. Let's see. All right.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 pieces of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Vote your whole ballot, turn your ballot over.
Yep.
Second thing is, I echo what Troy says, call your local party, find out ways you can get involved. There is literally something to do every day for the next 70 something days. You can do something, and you can be part of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. All right.
I would just add very quickly, just that keep your eyes on the prize. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
70 plus days are left. Like Michelle Obama, our forever first lady, like what she said, do something. There is something for all of us to do in the next 70 plus days to get Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz elected. Now, keep in mind, on election night, November 5th, we may not get all the numbers in that night. Some states, we're now, a lot of states don't have to worry about the District of Columbia, even though we do it as well, but we do mail-in ballots. And so people can actually drop off a ballot in the mail and it can get there the next few days. So in some of these battleground states, we may not have a clear victory on the 5th. Just don't let them gaslight you like they tried to do 4 years ago. If you know you got your people out to the polls and everybody is there, just let the numbers be counted. They're going to count them, and then we're going to see where the chips fall. So just be prepared for that, because they're going to try to gaslight you. And the last thing I'm going to say is they're going to come for Black women. They're going to come for Kamala, which means they're going to come for Black women. Be prepared for the nastiness that is about to explode coming from the other side and from their surrogates. Do not be dismayed by it. Do not be discouraged by it. It is part of the machine that's trying to break you and break us. Do not fall for it. Just know that, again, if you keep your eyes on the prize, November 5th is the last day to vote. And bring somebody with you, get involved in your party. We're going to win this. I feel that energy in that room I'm still wearing it. It's like a sweet perfume, a sweet fragrance. And if it's anything like what it was there, I know it will translate to what we need to do on the ground.
Yeah. And guys, please share this video, because everything that we try to do here is try to educate people on something to keep the momentum going, because information is power. Don't assume that all of us know everything, or, oh, they probably heard that already. Everybody doesn't listen to the news. That's half the reason. That is part of the reason why I even started doing this, just to educate people a lot of people don't listen to the news or read the news or anything else, but they will listen to peer-to-peer type of things. So share this video widely. Share it, please. Anybody else have any other parting words?
Vote early. That way you don't have to, if you hit by a bus, your vote still counts.
April.
I agree with everything that Troy and Satana said, especially Troy. They are coming. We know their playbook. And you're about to see misinformation and disinformation in ways that you have not seen before. Make sure that you have trusted, reliable places to get your information from. Not only that so you know what's going on, but you can also combat it when you hear it and see it and tell other people.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, guys, thank you so much for participating in the chat. There's so much going on in the chat. And I appreciate all your activity. I appreciate you, Satana. You never say no to me. I thank you so much for that. April, thank you so much, so much. Troy, thank you too. I appreciate you guys. It won't be our last time. And you guys stay tuned and please share the video. Share the video. Keep your friends and family educated as to what is going on. Don't assume that they know. Don't assume. All right, let's wave good night to everyone. Good night.